Oh, you mean the update?
Yeah, the update. It got to 30%. And I was like, nope, we're going to restart
Start
again.
again.
God. Something told me to check and see if there were any updates. Whatever it needed to do this morning, and I just slipped my mind.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is the December 16th, 2024 work session of the Salisbury City Council. In the event of an emergency, we ask that everyone remain calm and exit through the doors to your right, proceed to the right, and down the stairs. If the hallway is blocked, exit to the left, down the hall, and down the stairs. Please do not use the elevator, and let us know if you need any assistance. At this time, we do ask everyone, please silence your cell phones. If you plan to speak during today's work session, again, before any formal reading is had on any of the items on today's agenda, we ask that you would fill out a form when it's time at this point for the work session. Again, if you would like to speak on any of the items, we know folks are here to give comment on any particular item. You would do so at the work session that would happen before first reading. And if you'd like to speak again, you would have to fill out another form for the legislative session after we convene, and that would happen after the first reading of any of the items. At this time, we'll call Finance Director Sandy Green up for an audit presentation. Good afternoon, Ms. Green.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Give me one moment. And again, you all can hang tight for the public comment forms until that portion of the agenda. Ms. Green, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just to get started, I'd like to go over, can you hear me? Oh, okay, good. I'd like to go over the general fund FY24 financial results. Since we're getting ready to be into our budget season, I thought that if I shared some of this, it would help some of the new members of the council understand the budget process. So when we did our budget for FY24, the budgeted expenditures exceeded the budgeted revenues by $2.2 million. And then we also carried forward a $2.47 million encumbrance this was from the FY23 expenses, and most of those expenses were on projects. Then during the year, the city passed ordinances increasing appropriations for expenditures by another $497,000. So to sum all of that up, the final budget for FY24, we were going to have a use of surplus of $5.1 million. So if the city received exactly the revenues that we budgeted and we expended all the funds that we appropriated in the general fund for expenses, we would have had a use of surplus of $5.19 million. However, throughout the year for FY24, the city had favorable revenue variances of $2.06 million, and some of the factors in this were we had an increase in our tax revenue for more than what was budgeted, and we also had an increase in interest income. This was due to the high interest rate that we had on our investment accounts. The interest rate was over 5% last year. And then also, as we went throughout the year, we had a $3.83 million favorable variance in expenditures. So in other words, the departments didn't expend the entire amount that we budgeted, and a lot of this was due to public safety, vacancies in public safety and other areas that were not filled in the general fund throughout the year, and also interest that we budgeted for debt service. We had a favorable interest rate on the bond that we settled on in June, so some of the money that we had budgeted for interest we saved. So therefore, throughout the year, we budgeted a use of surplus of $5.19 million, but we had favorable variances of $5.89 million. So we ended up with a general fund surplus of $700,000 for the year. And that's reflected on page 57 of the audit. And really, that's pretty much almost a break even. You can't get much closer than a $700,000 surplus when you're dealing with a $50 million budget. And I also just wanted to call out my finance team, Olga Butar and Phil Menzel, both of the assistant directors of finance, and the rest of the finance office that worked so hard on the audit. And also, I think Keith Cordry, I'm going to call him out. He might be online. I want to give a shout out to him because he was available to help and answer questions. And we have Joe Manfrey from Barbicane Thornton and Company on Zoom. He is the audit manager who's going to be giving the presentation, and also Tim Sawyer, who is the partner. So I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Thanks, Sandy. You kind of took my job. I was going to introduce Joe to you, but yeah, Joe's going to go over the audit results for you. If you have any questions, let him know, or if you need anything from us, let us know. I do apologize. I have to drop off as I have conflicts. I have 3 other board meetings to get to, so I'm going to leave you in good hands with Joe. And like I say, if you need anything, let us know, and we'll get you an answer. Otherwise, Joe, it's all yours. Good luck.
Thanks, Tim. Before I start, I just want to make sure, is my screen, can you see it? Is it decent size? Do I have to zoom in at all?
Maybe zoom in a little bit.
A little bit? Okay. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yep. So thank you for having me here tonight. As mentioned, I'm Joe Manfrey. I'm the manager on the city's audit, and I'm here to present the June 30th, 2024 audit results. So, quick timeline and reports that you'll find in the actual audit report. So, fieldwork for the fiscal year 2024 audit was performed November 4th and completed December 2nd. Mostly off-site fieldwork. We did, however, come out on site back in July to do an inventory count. We issued an unmodified, or what is otherwise known as a clean audit opinion, on the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, aggregate remaining fund information. So that's the highest level opinion that we can give, clean, it's good opinion. We also, as you may or may not know, the city does spend $750,000 in awards that originate at the federal level. This does require the city to get a single audit report, which is just a compliance test, essentially, on your internal controls surrounding those grants. You did receive an unmodified opinion on that as well. The city did spend about $1.4 million in federal awards in 2024, and the focus of our single audit was the SAFER grant, which ended up being about $817,000 of the $1.4 million in federal awards. Also, during the course of the year, one thing that we are required to do as auditors is kind of look into the way cash flows in and out of the city. So you can think cash receipts, cash disbursements, and payroll. We have to make sure that the internal controls surrounding those functions are operating effectively, which we did come to that conclusion. On a secular basis, we usually look into one control cycle a little bit more in depth. We select a larger sample and kind of just dive into it and make sure everything is operating effectively. This year, we had 2 cycles that we looked into a little bit further. One of it was expenditures, and the other being water and sewer billings. And as I mentioned, we did not note any issues in our samples of testing. One thing that I do want to mention is we did assist management with the preparation of certain journal entries. These are really just related to GASB 68 and 75, which is the pension and OPEB liabilities. I did want to mention that these were the only adjustments that we helped management with. So that being said, on a month-to-month basis, whatever you were provided by the finance department is accurate. On a given month, everything that you are looking at and year-end results are accurate. We're not coming in and posting a ton of entries. It's just related to those 68 and 75 reports, which you are given actuarial reports on. And obviously, I'm here tonight presenting the final audit, and we will be doing the data collection form, which is related to the single audit. We will be submitting that to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse shortly after the audit is formally approved. Getting into some financial highlights, we have a look at your cash and investment pools, your restricted cash, and your receivables. 2024 is the blue column, and the orange column is 2023. As you can see, everything is up in 2024. You had about cash of about 29.7 million versus 27.6 in the previous year. Restricted cash has had a large increase. It's about 30.3 million. As mentioned earlier, there was a bond that was issued, so that's why you see the large increase in restricted cash. And you also have 10.5 million in receivables versus 7.2 in 2023. And if there's questions at any point, please just stop me. Looking at your capital assets, bonds, and your net position, capital assets came in right on par with last year. I think it was just a decrease of about 700,000. This is just your depreciation outweighing your additions for the year. And if you wanted to look into that a little bit further, that's note 5 of the financial statements. I believe there was about 5 million in additions in this year in the governmental activities. Bonds payable, notes and leases payable increased about 93.2 million. Again, this is just the bond issuance in this year, offset by payments in this year as well. And then net position ultimately increased about 6 million, coming in at about 100.6 million. This is a look at the fund balance at the fund level. So this is looking at the governmental activities. So think your general fund, your capital projects funds, and your non-major governmental funds. Non-spendable fund balance is really just made up of prepaid expenses. So that came in on par with 2023, being about 800,000. Restricted, again, the increase in restricted is related to money that's set aside for capital projects. So it's about 14.75 million in 2024. You have committed balances of 4.5 versus 3.7 in 2023. Assigned fund balance is down slightly to about 1.2 million versus 2.8. And ultimately, your unassigned, or what is, you could use this for any general use, is about 16.3 million versus 14.8 in 2023. Getting a look into your governmental revenues. As Sandy mentioned, you do see a little bit of an increase in your tax revenue, coming in at about 35.1 million in 2024 versus 33.3 million in 2023. Other revenues came in on par with 2023, being about 5.7 million. The intergovernmental revenues decreased about to 9.2 million. This was heavily reliant on last year. The city recognized all of the ARPA funding, which was the COVID grants. They had to use those by a certain deadline. The city used them last year. I believe that was about $4 million in federal awards. So that's why you see the decrease there. I mean, if you back that out because they're one-time grants that you would see, you technically kind of see an increase of about $2 million if you just kind of completely neglected the ARP funding. And then charges for services came in about on par with 2023, coming in at about 5.5 million. This is a look at your governmental expenditures. General fund, general government, public safety, and public works all came in a little bit higher than 2023. But nothing really to talk about there. Nothing that's out of the norm. Just general inflation across the board, salary increases, those kind of things. And then the rest of your expenditures kind of came in on par. As Sandy mentioned, debt service was down a little bit because the interest rates that you got were favorable, and capital outlays were a little bit higher than 2023, coming in about 7.2 million. Again, if you want to look at what was capitalized, I would refer you to note 5, which kind of explains where you're purchasing vehicles or building improvements or, construction in progress. This is a look at the water and sewer operating results. Operating revenues for the sewer and water fund significantly increased from 2023, coming in at about 23.3 million. Operating expenses saw a slight increase as well, but came in just shy of 16 million. And non-operating revenues and expenses were, pretty much on par with 2023's results as well. Slightly under 1 million for both of those. Just wanted to go over some required communications. Our scope and timing for the audit was consistent with what was planned with management. Our responsibilities are included in our engagement letter, which is dated July 15th, 2024. Again, we issued an unmodified opinion on the city's financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2024. The city did not adopt any new accounting policies in 2024. We are not aware of any significant accounting policies used by the city that could be deemed controversial or have, areas that lack guidance. There was no uncorrected misstatements for June 30th, 2024. Our proposed audit adjustments were reviewed by management and approved, and they are reflected in the financial statements. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified during the course of our audit. And, fraud and illegal acts, we are not aware of any. Nothing was brought forth to us. There are no independence issues regarding our audit. Management provided us with required representations, and there was no changes in terms of reasonable justification for change. There was no significant findings or issues during the audit. No disagreements with management. There was no consultants that we had to reach out to related to accounting policies or accounting issues. And there was no findings from external confirmations. At this point, I would open it up to any questions that are on the actual financial statements or anything that I just went over.
Mr. Mayor, one, we appreciate your work and your firm's work with the city and, of course, the Department of Finance. We appreciate your work with them as well. I don't have any questions pertaining the actual audit. It's just a couple points that you mentioned, Ms. Green, if you don't mind if I ask you now. Just two things. One, you mentioned that the $700,000, that was the change in the fund balance that was due to, again, you accredited that to us having some vacancies, especially in the public safety sector. What are we seeing as far as the city's success for the future, given that, again, those positions are frozen, we account for them, but again, we don't fund them. So I know that's an accounting, again, where we have them, we're just not allocating. So again, the city does find need and making sure we have those positions. Where are we looking, or how are we setting ourselves up for success, just knowing that that's where we're headed towards?
All of the,
I'm sorry, Ms. Green, thank you. Thank you.
all the public safety includes not just the police of the frozen positions, but it also includes the fire department and traffic as well. So we also have had vacancies in traffic. So some of the vacancies, some of that surplus could come from vacancies that we had in traffic. So we do fund that. It's only the police positions that are not funded. They're frozen and not funded in the budget.
Yeah, that's good. You good. The variance that we're seeing was for vacancies within the positions. However, this past year, we did have 2 successful graduating classes. We last Friday graduated 4 more individuals to join our police department for. So I think we're only down 2 right now. So that's from 2 years ago. We were down 12. I think we're only down to 2 now. So we are seeing an uptick in law enforcement. We have another class that's entering the academy. So we're hoping to continue to have strong numbers in police. Yeah.
And my second question is pertaining to the water and sewer. And again, I know that last year, an increase in the rates, I know we adjusted it just slightly. And so just seeing that we had, a pretty substantial figures as far as the revenues pertain. I know that we have there's PFAS and there's some upgrades that need to happen with the water and sewer system. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds with our director, Corey. She is an expert on this, but just, is that, I know that that's unusual, but is that to provide some cushion, or is that, can you just speak to that increased revenue? I know, residents may have some concern to say, well, if the rate was increased 5 to 9%, and again, I know that the mayor's office has given talks that because of these issues, that rates are going to probably continue to increase. We want to speak to, I guess, the substantial revenues that the city saw there. So do you mind just touching on that?
Right, the sewer usage was up, so besides the rate increases, some of the change in the net position that we had with the water and sewer were due to sewer charges, usage being up. And we also, again, expenditures were under budget in the sewer and water fund as well. And also interest income was up in the water sewer fund, and the debt interest again because we had the bond sale. So some of the things that we had budgeted for, like debt interest and interest income, were variances there as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's an attempt to sort of train the budget going forward before it's right on top of us. Yeah, I think she's correct in that we'll probably have to do it again before and then we're going through the planning phase and getting the estimates now, so we're trying to strategize as to what the next for a couple of years look like.
I want to make sure we speak to that because, again, if we have a couple years of increased revenues, that there may be just a concern that we need to make sure that we can speak to, and that we know if of course council and the administration, but if the citizens know what the plans are to come, we can anticipate that. Council, any other questions for the finance team and for the auditors?
No.
Great, and we'll see you again to be accepted. But thank you, Ms. Green. All right, next we'll invite Fire Chief Rob Frampton for an ordinance approving a budget amendment. Looks like we have, all right, Deputy.
It'll be me.
Yes,
Sorry.
wonderful.
Sorry to disappoint.
No. Yeah.
Surprise, I'm here.
Yes.
Okay, here before you, a few months back, we sold a surplus piece of equipment, an actual boat motor that came from one of our fire boats. It went to auction, sold for $1,156.25. We are just asking to have that money put back into our operating account. We have a project that we would like to use that money to help pay for. So, yep, that's why I'm here.
I thought you were going to say that the money was going to fund the project at 1,001. I was going to say, well, what project is that?
Well,
I'd like to know, but no.
It will help fund some of it. It won't cover all of it.
No, we appreciate you all are always resourceful in making sure that you find cash where it's not directly seen. So, council, any questions for Deputy Fire Chief? Okay, we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, Chief, you're up.
All right, we'll bring up City Planner Amanda Rodriguez for a resolution to amend and restate the terms of an annexation agreement.
Good evening, everybody.
Ms. Rodriguez, hello. See, you're walking better today.
A little bit.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
Okay. So this is for an amended annexation agreement request for an annexation that was completed in 2007. It's 2 parcels located on the southeastern quadrant of the intersection of US 13 and 50, binding on the north side of Hobbs Road for a total of 39.27 acres. It's located within the regional commercial zoning district, and it will be developed in accordance with the standards for that district. The reason that the applicant is here for an amended agreement revolves around market trend changes. Originally, their development plan with the annexation was for hotels, retail, of various other uses that you'll find in your packet. But just because of market changes, we want to continue to allow them to develop that property, but just maybe with different uses that are allowed within regional commercial.
Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for that. Council, any questions on the terms of the annexation agreement?
No.
No? Okay, we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Ms. Rodriguez, annexation request for 2 parcels on the northeast side. Hold on one second. And folks, if you have public comment forms, we ask you do hold those so that we won't have too much commotion going on during the meeting as well. For 2 parcels on the northeast side of Old Quantico Road.
Sure. Okay, so these 2 properties, like you said, are on the northeast side of Old Quantico Road, and they are bound by the Wacomico River at the rear property lines. The combined area of the 2 parcels totals 1.966 acres, and the properties requesting annexation are currently improved with single-family dwellings. Due to the failing septic systems on these parcels and the close proximity of available city water and sewer services, the property owners are requesting annexation to improve the site's current infrastructure. The parcels are currently identified as medium-density residential, and the applicant is requesting that these parcels be zoned R5A upon annexation, indicating the owner's intent to have these properties maintain the residential use. So this is your initial introduction.
Thank you. Council, any questions on the 2 parcels on the northeast side of Old Quantico Road?
No.
No? And should we proceed with the annexation?
Yes. Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, next, Ms. Rodriguez, if you want to discuss the ordinance amending section 17.150.050.05A, deleting the word townhouses from the category of uses.
Okay, so this is actually 2 amendments to that chapter. Chapter 17.150 is for a planned residential district, which is residential district number 7, the Villages at Adelet. Right now, the way that this has been developed, the parcels had changed identification over time, and due to a mistake at the time, the parcels were misidentified when one of the sections of the development was developed. But again, because this is a planned residential district, all of the uses are pre-planned and they have their own set of standards. These 2 changes will allow, the first one is to change, to remove the word townhouses from the allowable uses and replace it with residential use. The structures that were built there are townhouses in style, but they are actually triplexes, which are handled as apartments in our code. So this would strike townhouses, replace that with residential. And then the second amendment would increase the density for that parcel from 5.5 units per acre to 6 units per acre. Per the developer's site plan, the combined density of the approved townhouse-style apartments from the villas and then the 63 proposed for the hamlets would be a total of 362 units, which would calculate out to being 5.95 units per acre. This is the last phase of that development, so there's not any further construction expected. The proposed amendments were reviewed by the city attorney, and they received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission following their public hearing on November 21st, 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Council, any questions on the above ordinance changes?
None.
No? All right, we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, Ms. Rodriguez, if you want to discuss the ordinance amending section 17.24.040, increasing the density of the central business zoning district.
Sure. I'm going to actually go ahead and let Nick introduce this one to you guys.
Okay. Thanks, guys. So in July, we had received the request from an applicant to amend the code to change downtown zoning's inherent residential density from 40 units per acre to 80 units per acre, so doubling the amount of housing that can be built on any lot. Over the next few months, since from July up until now in November, staff reviewed and received many comments from the public in favor of the change and against the change as well, which I think everybody has seen. We looked at all the old city plans that have been approved and adopted and kind of considered this change against all of them. We met with the applicant many times at our office to discuss possible different development scenarios, buildings that would be kind of foreseeably built, possibly built, not likely, a whole host of different iterations of what might come. We tried to look at the different impacts that could arise from this possible development, these different patterns that could transpire, positive impacts, negative impacts, whatever we could come up with to the best of our ability. Again, somewhat in discussion with the applicant as well. During the meetings, we ultimately concluded that while the change would further development in the downtown, which I think is kind of a generally accepted goal from plans from folks throughout town, that it didn't fully consider possible impacts on the negative end that could arise. There just wasn't that much in-depth, or really arguably any look at the possible impacts and downside of this change. So we gave a unfavorable recommendation, or advised the Planning Commission unfavorably on it. We had a work session, we had a public hearing where the public was able to speak, and the Planning Commission ultimately voted favorably and recommended to council by a 6-1 vote that the change should be adopted. So we're now presenting that change for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Has anything changed since the November Planning and Zoning Commission meeting since to now with in regards to staff's report or anything thereof?
No, just however was left at the end of the presentation and the hearing. It's about the same.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Council, any questions pertaining to this text amendment?
I have a question. In the planning and zoning meeting, there was several paragraphs that were going to be deleted for a variety of reasons. Apparently, no one who wrote them or people didn't agree with them or whatever. So the submitted final plan or presentation you had, is that submitted as the original written document, or is it submitted as an altered document?
I believe what was posted by the county planning and zoning was the altered version with the strikings.
That hasn't been posted yet. What you have in your packet is that stricken version. The ones on the Wycomico County Planning and Zoning website won't be public record in theory until after the minutes have been voted upon at the Planning Commission meeting this month.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? You have a question or comment pertaining to the agreement?
Just discussion of it, or I don't have questions for them, no. I just have a comment. Do you want me to share my comments on this topic? Okay. I'm going to get it in, you know that. Okay, first of all, I'm not opposed to development anywhere in the city based upon our needs. With that said, I also realize that a lot of decisions have been determined prior to my serving on this council, so therefore I want to share my thoughts regarding the request to just double the density of this project.
Oh, and I want to preface, again, we want to make sure that we're talking about the text amendment, not a particular project. I just want to make sure we preface
Sure,
that.
oh yeah, just density in general, because I'll clarify that. Here are the things I think need to be considered when deciding to double density. At top of the list is real available parking options for the initial number of 40 units per acre, much less adding 40 more units because there will already be a shortage in downtown parking. We need to factor in visitors, to the occupants, to the downtown stores, the proposed SU Fine Arts Center, special events during the year promoting downtown, like the tree lighting that just happened, delivery trucks, work trucks, etc. Most likely, all will need parking, even if they're only coming and going for maybe 10 or 20 minutes. Consideration of existing businesses that will be impacted by the lack of parking is also something to consider. Additional need for city services will definitely be impacted by increasing density anywhere, police, fire, schools, etc. And full taxes will not be paid to help cover some of these additional needs and expenses. Yes, as the letters we have received have stated, double density will, first of all, put heads in beds, but that also means cars in slots. These heads in beds will shop and eat downtown, but will need to drive to grocery stores, jobs, etc. Consider doubling the amount of cars with double density. Secondly, increase the housing stock. That's been brought up. One word is missing when considering the CBD. That's attainable or affordable housing. Lastly, of things to consider when increasing the density also translates to more people needing jobs. Are there options for them that don't require driving? In conclusion, I think any request for increased density, there needs to be requirements for any developers anywhere in the city to supply parking and include a percentage of financially attainable and affordable units. Each project should be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. This decision is not about just doubling density, it's about the impact on the city long-term to address issues from a common-sense approach, not just to accommodate various developers. Thank you.
Council, any other comments?
No.
Okay. Do we have?
May I speak? May I speak?
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
Like I said, it's a work session. I was hoping I'd be able to speak. I think it's unusual that that the planning department made a recommendation, a fairly strong recommendation, that it, for a host of reasons, all reasons that were cited not only at the planning commission, but at the appeals board, which were never really ever addressed. So we kind of, I think the planning department sort of laid out the case of what are the challenges, and so. But yet none of them were ever addressed. It was just sort of go to 40 to 80. Now, having said that, I'm not opposed to development. I'm building downtown. I've been downtown for 25 years. The issue has always been not density, but parking. And my campaign was 40 pounds of potatoes in a 20-pound bag, and it hasn't changed. Ironically, the next day after the hearing, the hospital project, we became aware, they're looking to do a project which is standalone at 120 units an acre, which I'm totally in favor of. Why? Because they provide parking on site, and they don't have any negative impact in the downtown. The math is pretty simple, despite the magic of some of these parking studies, which by the way, we're going to get a backup one version of that, is that you can't eliminate 400 some permits and add demand of 300 some permits and build a 444 garage. Just the math doesn't work, forgetting about any future development that may or may not occur. So again, we've created this whole negative energy around what is hopefully going to be an infill development that's going to be complementary to the downtown and keep it accessible and healthy. And that's the argument. So we're trying to really win an argument here about density when we're really talking about health, parking, access, and the next generation of people that enjoy the downtown. So I just wanted to put that on the record. We're just talking about two different things, and we're dragging people down roads that really isn't the issue. The issue is really parking and quality of life. So, like I said, I'm not opposed to development. I'm not opposed to an infill development, but we're trying to put 100 sardines in a 50-pound can. Another example. So that's all I'll say before future discussion on this topic.
Council, do we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Yep. All right. Next, we'll move to the public comment portion of the agenda. And again, you all have 3 minutes to speak. And again, it has to pertain to the above items on the agenda. Again, please make sure that your comments refer directly to those items. And again, if you have not submitted a form yet, please grab a form near the table that you came in and hand it to the city clerk, Ms. Julie English. When you come to the podium, please state your name and if you are a City of Salisbury resident, or your organization that you are representing. We do ask that you are respectful in your delivery of your comments and concerns. Again, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Ms. English will mark the timer. You may not concede your time to another person. And again, we ask that you be respectful and not direct your comment to any one person. And again, I do have the right, and I will reserve the right to, if I don't find that your comment is germane to the topic or respectful, then we will move forward. Any other comments? We'll start with Vaughn Siggers.
Good evening. Somebody commented that I was lucky that I'm number one, the first one to speak. I beg to differ. However, I am grateful for this opportunity to speak. Good evening, I'm Vaughn Siggers. I am a city resident, and I am also in support of growth and development in our city. However, I am not in support of increasing the density. There is more than just housing that will come into play. When we look at the traffic situation in the city, it is potentially, can become a bottleneck situation, particularly in the downtown area. When we're looking at all the potential development that we're anticipating, the development of housing on Fitzwater, West Main Street, when we look at a potential performing arts center in the downtown area, and the potential housing development, we have to take into account the traffic and the impact that that will have upon the community. And I will tell you, not only that, we have to take into account the barges that come and go. The traffic situation already is a matter of concern, and I would just hope that the council, when you say, I have a question, and I don't know that you can answer it, but when you said move something forward, is that kind of like an approval, or is that just to continue the discussion? That's not like a first or second reading kind of thing. I guess you can't answer that. Okay, so if at some point you can clarify that, I would appreciate it. But I would just like to say that I am optimistic about growth and development, but I am concerned about the potential of the traffic situation, the potential bottleneck that we could experience, and it is a delicate situation, as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Siggers. And I was just referencing that again, if your comment is not germane to the topic or if it's not respectful, then we will move forward. No, I was just clarifying what you asked what moving forward meant when I said that. And I was just saying in general, if anyone's comment is not germane to the topic or respectful, then we as a collective will move forward. Your comment was very respectful, Ms. Siggers. Lynn Bratton.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Bratton. I reside at South Boulevard in the city of Salisbury. Today I would like to address the density issue for the Central Business District. I have referenced my love of theater many times before, but today I come to you as Toto from The Wizard of Oz. You see, the story is an allegory laden with symbols that resonate with deep truths. It is Toto who plays the pivotal role of unveiling the truth by pulling back the curtain on the wizard. Toto is the revealer of the illusion. So today I come to you as a person hoping to help others see the illusion that is being played out in this downtown Salisbury Central Business District. It is an illusion that high-dollar apartments built at density greater than has been allowed since parking was not a requirement for development will solve all of the problems facing our downtown. The reality is that the increased density will bring so many other problems. If you as a council members will please read the DID report presented at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting in November, you will begin to see what is behind the curtain. The report was presented by city employees hired based on their credentials in planning and development. Sadly, those at the P&Z table decided to keep that curtain drawn on the facts and go with developers' wishes. 3 times the originator of the text amendment was denied greater density requests, but decided no was not the answer they needed. Thus, the text amendment plan that would allow the requested 77 units they wanted. Please vote not to support this density amendment. It cannot be undone like the other decisions from the past, like closing the Main Street or installing a monument. This text amendment, if passed, will change downtown forever. And unlike the song from Wicked, it will not be a change for the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bratton. Megan Outen.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Outen, Salisbury resident. I just want to come out and state that I'm in full support of this zoning amendment. But first, I want to thank the council and administration. I know these decisions are not easy. You're hearing very drastic viewpoints on this discussion, and I first just want to thank you all. But I will say that what I've heard time after time is that this is at the behest of developers, and I think it does a disservice to the residents and the individuals who have come forward, renters and downtown business owners, the downtown business lines per se, who have said time and time again that this zoning amendment is not only going to help our downtown businesses, but provide an opportunity for downtown to thrive again. So I just encourage you all to read a little bit more into this, connect with the downtown businesses directly, because there are a lot of very vocal voices here who are very adamant about the fact that this is going to allow our community to thrive even further. So again, I just want to thank you all, council, for the work and for the service you provide the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn Wogelmuth.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Wogelmuth. I'm a city resident. I strongly oppose the zoning amendment to double density in the CBD to accommodate one developer's luxury apartment project at the expense of the entire CBD. This amendment would have far-reaching ramifications as well as unintended consequences to the entire CBD. The developer only requested this because he repeatedly failed to secure a density increase through legal methods. The sole reason for this case is one developer refused to take no as an answer. He was told no in November 2023 by the Salisbury Board of Appeals when he requested an exception to density. He was told no in May of 2024 when he appealed that decision to the Wicomico County Circuit Court. And then he was told no in September when Judge Jackson reconsidered and again denied his appeal. Having been rebuffed legally on 3 separate occasions, the developer has now resorted to a Hail Mary play to get his way. Since the law clearly doesn't support him, he is attempting to change the rules as an end run around the law. But this zoning amendment would change the rules not just for him and his project, but for everybody in the CBD. It's time to shut this down and tell him a final no. He knew what the rules were when he purchased the parking lots. He challenged the rules and he lost. He should just accept the rules. 40 units per acre is quite generous, but he is greedy. As representatives of city taxpayers, you, council members, should not support this developer's greed. Our own City Department of Infrastructure and Development spent months evaluating the effects of this amendment. They presented a comprehensive analysis of the impact that doubling the density in the CBD would have. Their professional staff report addressed a multitude of areas, including parking, traffic, road infrastructure, water, sewer, stormwater management, impact on schools and neighboring areas, historic significance, conflicts with the Salisbury Master Plan, and cost increase to city taxpayers. Their analysis was thorough and compelling, as was their conclusion that, quote, staff cannot support the current text amendment, unquote. Our city professionals said no to this latest attempt by the developer to skirt the law. They did their job. Now it's time for you to do yours. Accept the DID staff expertise, their professional analysis, and recommendation. Deny this proposed zoning amendment. This zoning amendment should not be about accommodating one developer's individual product.
Thank you.
Just say
Thank
no.
you, Ms. Wogelmuth. Mary Hubner.
Good evening. I'm Mary Hubner. I live in the city of Salisbury. Remember when we were all back in high school and we'd go to a baseball game and chant, "We want a pitcher, not a glass of water"? Well, I have a chant for city residents. Work for city taxpayers, not the developers. I attended the planning and zoning meeting a couple of weeks ago where there were 4 hours of testimony for and against the apartment project, the density increase. There was a long statement given by the city's Department of Infrastructure and Development, about 25 minutes at least, as to why this project is not a good fit for Salisbury. The city does not agree with the doubling of the density. Lots of other concerned citizens spoke against it as well. After all that testimony, Chairman Chip DeShiel called for a vote without any discussion. Deshaun Dowdy is on that committee. There was no discussion or postponement of a decision. It was voted immediately following city comments, and it passed. Bob Taylor called it a kangaroo court.
Ms. Hume, I'm going to pause you right there. Again, you made two references. I asked that we not point out direct individuals. So if you want to just remain
okay.
with that point. Thank you.
I'm done. I had to look up that. But for that committee not to take into consideration all the comments that were given, especially those of the city, is unbelievable. And it was voted for against the city's opposition to this project. I think that's very strange. So I think the citizens of Salisbury should band together and chant, work for city taxpayers, not the developers. Remember, until it sinks in. Remember the old comment about no I in team? Well, you need to start working as a team for the citizens of Salisbury. We're the ones paying the salaries, and I would hope you would strive to earn that salary. On another note, which was also discussed earlier, my water bill has gone up $70 in 7 years. Water usage on my part has remained pretty much the same. So the increase obviously comes from the city. And I sure hope that those increases will stop, because the things that come into my house aren't going up like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huebner. Jared Schabling.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Schabline, resident of District 1 in the Powell building right down the street. So I want to start by pointing out, because this seems to be the overwhelming opposition talking point, I'm not a developer. I live downtown. I'm a resident, work an average 9-to-5 job. I don't profit off of any downtown development. I live there, though. I just want to remind the council that the people who live downtown matter, our voices matter, and in this conversation, it seems like our voices are being ignored by so many just saying it's developers, it's developers. It's not developers that are leading this charge. It is residents like myself, it is all local small businesses, it is the downtown businesses that are all small businesses, not millionaires, not, rich, evil people that are calling for this density amendment. They are the ones, we are the ones who would benefit the most. Councilman Dowdy, I know you said don't acknowledge anyone. Can I thank my council representative? Because I actually would like to thank them. I do want to shout out my council member, Councilwoman April Jackson, for her hard work she's done representing our district. She served our district and our people very well for many years, and I appreciate you for standing up for housing. I appreciate you for standing up for, everyone in our district, whether you live in the Powell or whether you live, anywhere in your district. So I appreciate it. I know you've gone through a lot. I know you've gotten a lot of hostile comments. So I want to personally thank you for all that you do. I also just kind of want to end on this point. I see a lot of our landlord friends up here again opposing this. I find it really odd that you refuse to identify yourselves and who you are and what your interest is in opposing this property and opposing this density amendment and what you gain. You all want to talk about land.
Mr. Chaplin, I want to make sure we're talking about the actual text amendment.
Understandable.
Thank you.
Well, I hope the council will do the right thing, see what's happening here, and approve this density amendment. Thank you.
Richard Inslee.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Obviously, I want to speak on density, and as a disclosure, I'll say up front, I don't own any property in downtown, nor do I have any relatives who do. I want to share some thoughts and opinions which are solely my own and based on my own experiences over 50-plus years of owning and managing real estate. Further, I'm very much in favor of growing and developing downtown Salisbury. I've worked in the development area for a significant number of years in my life. I'm pro-growth. However, there are some significant criteria which must be met for growth and development to be successful. Near the top of the list of must-haves is parking. No development will be successful without adequate parking. Further, it has the potential to create a disaster. If residents, employees, business owners, customers, users of government services, restaurant patrons, etc., do not have adequate parking, they will not come. That means they will not come and they will not stay. Imagine renting an apartment and having to fight for parking spaces and sometimes not finding any available. None of the above users will come and stay if they don't have reliable parking nearby. The city has sold most of its parking lots for development. Most of that development has not yet occurred. Wise investors will not build if their customers do not have adequate parking. It would be foolish to do so. Vacant buildings are not pretty. Just add up the number of parking spaces needed for all of the occupants, customers, employees, etc., of existing businesses and restaurants, offices and services, and then add up the number of parking spaces that will be available to them. There's a huge discrepancy. The planning staff has not given a favorable recommendation for this increase in occupancy, and it's my understanding the developer's appeal has already been unsuccessful in court. Common sense has to prevail here. The sole issue here is parking. Parking, parking, parking. The proposed legislation has potential to not only stop future developers from building, but also to drive out existing businesses and owners who have been paying taxes downtown for years. My humble opinion is that you should not go forward with this ordinance. I hope for the good of Salisbury and all those that have an investment in downtown that you will vote against this proposal.
Thank you, Mr.
Proposed
Inslee.
increase in density. Thank you.
Joe Schiaffino?
Joe Schiaffino, Pinehurst Neighborhood. I'll be very brief. I did send an email letter to all council members. Several were able to acknowledge, for whatever reason, other ones may have been busy. Hopefully, everybody read it. The only thing I'd like to say at this time related to the zoning is that the one thing constituents want from our representatives is transparency. So what I respectfully request of any member that does support the ordinance, if they would address why they decided that the parking requirement wasn't an issue, or how they feel the concerns by our Department of Infrastructure and Development, how they will be addressed. Again, that's the biggest concern. I'm not opposed to the density increase. You folks inherited a parking requirement that was taken away. If that requirement was still in place, and I would think you would have the power to put that back in place, that might make this discussion a little less contentious. So, thank you.